Hey everybody! Happy St. Patrick's Day and welcome to the Campus Pride LGBTQ College 411 Google Plus Hangout. Today we have some great information for you while you're looking for colleges, getting information about admissions and scholarships. We have a wonderful panel here ready to give you all of the information that you need. Your LGBTQ College 411. We'd love to take a second here to thank our sponsor for the online college fair, Synchrony Financial. We're super excited for their recent support and working with their community and diversity initiatives. We'd also like to thank all of the partners who have been supporting the online college fair. For those of you who are not already logged in, please go in a new window to campuspride.org/collegefair and hop on for free and chat with live colleges across the nation. They'll be there until 9 o'clock tonight Eastern. I'd love to take a second here and have everybody introduce themselves. My name is Rebby Kern, and I'm the Media, Communications, and Programs Manager at Campus Pride here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I use the pronouns she, her, and hers. We'll go ahead and start with Chris, and we'll have everybody introduce themselves, tell us which college or which organization you're representing, and of course your gender pronouns.
Hi, my name is Chris Mosier. I am the Executive Director of Go Athletes, which is a national network of current and former LGBTQ college athletes and high school athletes. And I'm also the Assistant Director of Residence Life at Marymount Manhattan College in New York City. And my gender pronouns are he, him, his, himself.
Great. Jay?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Alston. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm 20 years old. I'm a junior at the University of Delaware in Newark, Delaware. I'm studying marketing at the Alfred Lerner College of Business and Economics and gender studies in the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm the president of Haven, which is the University of Delaware's largest and oldest LGBTQ student organization, and I'm the secretary of the Campus Pride Advisory Board.
Thanks y'all for being here. Prin?
I'm Prin. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am a junior in the Women's and Gender Studies Department at the University of South Florida.
Great. Shane?
Hi, my name is Shane Windmeyer, and I'm the Executive Director and the founder of Campus Pride. I authored the Advocate College Guide for the best LGBT colleges across the country back in 2006, and I'm also one of the creators of the Campus Pride Index, which helps colleges find or helps colleges recruit LGBT students. And I use he, him, his pronouns.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. We're super excited that we're here, and we know that we have a number of viewers who are ready to learn a little bit more about what makes a college LGBTQ friendly, how to identify key resources for students, how to get involved. And so we have a handful of questions that we'd like to ask the panelists to respond to. In addition, there's also a Q&A box, so feel free to jump in, type your questions, and we'll be taking questions at the end. You can also join in the national conversation on Twitter using hashtag LGBTQCollege411. Campus Pride is also on Snapchat, Tumblr, and Instagram, so feel free to follow us and give us a shout out. So first, I'd like to start with getting to know a little bit if each panelist can describe what your college search was like. When you were in high school and looking for a college, were you interested in finding a college in your area, or if you're looking for a specific major, or if you remember any specific tools that you used while you were searching for colleges? Prin, we'll start with you.
Okay, so when I was looking for colleges, I was looking in Florida so I could get in-state tuition and in-state scholarships. And then I applied to a few of the schools that had programs I was interested in at the time, and I chose the school that gave me the most scholarships. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Jay, how about you?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there for a sec. But when I was looking for colleges, I knew that I wanted to go out of state. So I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I knew that I kind of wanted a fresh start to try a different place, but I didn't want to go so far away, so that I couldn't go home easily. And I wanted some place that was, because I'm originally from New York City, so I wanted someplace that was accessible to public transportation because that's what I'm used to. So a place where I can sort of travel around pretty easily. And for me, choosing college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I still don't know what I want to do with my life, and that's okay. So for me, what was important was finding schools and applying to schools that were a big enough size that they sort of had everything that I could choose from. I could try out classes in this department, try this out until I sort of found what I liked to do, and had the option to do it without having to transfer schools. So that's really why I focused on we're like a mid to large size institution and a state school. So that was really what I was looking for. And then when I was searching, I did definitely use Campus Pride's index to sort of gauge where schools were at in terms of being comprehensive and inclusive for LGBTQ students.
Awesome. And Chris?
When I was searching for my undergrad institution, I basically was a first-generation college student, first person in my family to go, and so I really didn't have any idea of what I was doing. I chose based on a high school friend was at a college a year older than me, and I chose it pretty much based on one visit there, and kind of just went through the motions from there. I had a better understanding by the time I got to graduate school, and then I got to choose based on a couple more factors about being inclusive and things that were important to me at that time as my identity shifted.
Very good. And Shane as well, what was it like for you when you were searching for colleges, grad colleges, and the access points that you had there?
For adults who are attending, we do go to community colleges, and there's many, diverse the process, know about financial aid. I didn't know about scholarships. So I actually was part of a program called Upward Bound, which was a TRIO program that helped first-generation low-income college students find access to college. And so luckily fly, Campus Pride, I heard Jay mentioned our Campus Pride in if they're out in LGBTQ or if they're an ally, regardless of their age. So, things were very different when I went to school, 90 to 97. Grad school for me was the time when I was really out, but my undergraduate school, luckily,
Awesome. Thank you. So, Chris, I realized that you were speaking about being a first-generation college student. Does anybody else have experience with being a first-generation college student and how that impacted your student career? Chris, you can start us off, and then if anybody else has experience with that, we can jump to you.
Sure. So I think that, as I mentioned, I was just really confused about what the college process should be like. So even from the initial parts of filling out a FAFSA form or doing college applications, I had a guidance counselor in high school, but I felt like my high school wasn't really a pipeline to college at that time, that there wasn't the expectation that everyone in my high school would go to college, and so that was kind of more the exception than the norm. So I felt very alone when I was kind of filling out all of that stuff, and I really couldn't look to parents or family members to guide me, which is why I think that I kind of relied on that friend who had done it the year before as my entry point into college. And it's interesting now, my brother is actually applying to colleges this year and is asking me some of those questions that I definitely had when I was filling out my applications and scholarship forms and things like that.
That makes sense. Prin and Jay, do either one of you have any experience being a first-generation college student? Prin, I see that you're nodding. Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, so I'm a first-generation college student as well. So for me, that meant that my parents didn't save money for me to go to college. So I had to do a lot of research for scholarships and stuff on my own, and that's why I ended up having to choose a school that gave me the most scholarships, but it ended up being a great school, and I love it. So.
And Jay, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
I don't for this question, actually.
You can speak a little bit to what it was like maybe working with your family, or if you had any influence in your family about which college that you picked.
Yeah, definitely. So both of my parents have master's degrees. People in my extended family all have at least a bachelor's degree, and a majority have master's to higher than that level education. So thankfully, I didn't have to worry about sort of the process behind getting into schools or looking for schools or anything like that, which I was looking about. But definitely, us to sort of piggyback off what Prin was saying about saving money and things like that. I think regardless, for a majority of people, college is very, very expensive. So in the end, based on as much as I would like to have been based on like where I really wanted to go and the programs and this and that, I also did have to pick a school based on scholarship funding. So.
Thanks for sharing that. So we've all sort of referenced money, right? College does cost a lot of money, and we can't pay for it all out of pocket. And so when it came to identifying key scholarships, Prin, you said that you looked for scholarships on campus. Will you talk a little bit more about what resources that you used at the time to search for scholarships, and if when you applied for FAFSA, and how that assisted your college funding as well?
Yeah, so at the time I didn't know about Campus Pride, and that would have helped me a lot. But basically I just Googled LGBT scholarships. I saw that my university offered one, which is great. I ended up getting that later, but I didn't apply for it at the time because I didn't feel qualified at the time. I didn't really have as much experience. And that's pretty much how I had to go about it, just Googling it and finding what I could. And at the time, I couldn't find a lot. I feel like there's more now than there were when I was looking.
And Chris, how did being an athlete play into the way that you searched for scholarships and the way that you worked with the college to provide funding for college?
When I was applying to schools, it really didn't play in because I chose not to be an athlete with the campus teams. I did recreational sports instead, and so for me that experience was a little bit different, and I think in part that was due to really not knowing how that process works. So I did scholarship searches sort of similarly based on local area. So my high school was able to connect me with some of the scholarships that a county or a township had through places of employment as well. So we had a town newspaper that had a scholarship, or through my mom's work had a scholarship that their children could get. Also, coming from a single-parent family was helpful for me in terms of my family contribution, and so that was kind of enabled me to get a little bit more opportunity to get some funding outside. And then I knew that I was going to count on work and work study on campus, and so I kind of factored that in as well. For a lot of our athletes, we know that it is a big decision in terms of who's going to offer them an opportunity to play and how that impacts their scholarship and the funding that they'll receive. And then there's also things to think about in terms of what's covered with scholarships. And so for myself and for working in a college, I know that if you choose to live off campus, you might not get scholarship funding or grant funding to cover that, so you may have to take out private loans. But if you choose to live on campus, that then is covered. And so that kind of plays into the decision making as well.
Thanks for sharing that. Thank you. Shane, this might be a good time for you to jump in and talk a little bit more about the newly re-released Campus Pride National Scholarship Database.
Sure. Well, hopefully my audio is a bit better this time. Is it better, Revi?
Yeah, you sound great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, you had asked me about my college search process, and for me, back in 1995 when I went to school, it was very different, and so I'm very proud that Campus Pride has taken the lead on creating the Campus Pride Index at campusprideindex.org to help students find LGBTQ-friendly college campuses. But as far as scholarships, we also have created the Campus Pride scholarship database in partnership with the Point Foundation, and it lists hundreds of college scholarships available as well as community scholarships, and anyone can add or update, but both of those are free resources. So there's many more scholarships out there today for a young person who is LGBTQ looking to go to college, plus organizations like Campus Pride can help assist in making sure you understand how to complete your financial aid or your FAFSA, and working you through that process. So, organizations like Campus Pride are here for you to help you transition from high school to college. And, I always say it doesn't just get better by going to college. You have to pick the right college. And there's many colleges out there today on our college fair, right? Over 40 colleges that want to take responsibility for LGBTQ students.
Thanks for sharing that. And you all can go to campuspride.org/scholarships to take a look at the database. You can search by region, by campus, by area, and even by name of a scholarship that you might already know about, and use that. So I'd also like to remind the audience to feel free to join in the conversation online. Use the hashtag LGBTQCollege411 to join in on the national college information that's happening on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as Facebook. Follow us on Snapchat as well, Campus Pride. I'd like to talk to the panelists a little bit further. So now we talked about what it was like looking for college. And so what is it like for you on campus now, or the way that you are involved on campus? So Jay, will you speak a little bit to the leadership roles that you have on campus now, and how they support your academics and really what your personal student life looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So I think for my school in particular at the University of Delaware, if I'm just going to be frank and honest, it's definitely not a school that has it all figured out. But I think that that's okay. And I think for me, it's an important place for me to be because though it's not some place that has it all figured out in terms of supporting LGBTQ students, it's a place where there's a huge amount of leadership opportunities for people who want to make that happen, and they're open to they're open to other people expressing what their needs and working with students to really get to the bottom of how they can get better. So really it's a place where a lot of action is happening and there's room for a lot of more action to occur. So for me, I wanted to jump right in. That was like my thing. I wanted to get right to the top and do whatever I could to help out and really get involved. So my freshman year became the treasurer of our largest LGBTQ organization, and then a year later became the director of diversity and inclusion for our organization, and now I'm the president. And so that progression has allowed me to really take part in a lot of aspects of campus. And through being the largest LGBTQ organization on campus, sort of me being able to represent the needs of queer students around campus and other aspects. I also serve on the Sexual Assault Prevention and Education Committee. I serve on the Student Health Advisory Council, the LGBTQ Staff and Faculty Caucus, so really taking the needs of students that I'm with in my organization and in the community at large and bringing them to the stage at the full school. And it's sort of, UD is kind of interesting because we're around 18,000 undergrads, but it really has a way of feeling like a small school, which I like a lot. And sort of you get to know a lot of the people, and you can have meetings with the president. And in a lot of schools, that's sort of blocked off to you. But I think UD has a way of sort of shortening the ladder for people to really put their thoughts or their needs out there. So,
thanks for sharing that. And Prin, will you speak a little bit towards the work that you're doing specifically at USF towards trans and non-binary resources and access on campus?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I started up the Trans Student Union on my campus, and I've been the president of that organization on and off. I had to take a year off so that I could work and pay for things, and I'm off again now for mental health reasons. And I've been a student liaison for CSOGI, which is the Committee on Issues of Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. It's an LGBTQ plus presidential committee that works on policies on campus and reports directly to the president of the university. I've been a participant, and this year I am a site leader for our alternative spring break program called Bull Service Breaks, and we spend our spring break volunteering for Campus Pride. Go Bulls. I'm also currently working in the Office of Multicultural Affairs on my campus, trying to make the school more trans-friendly in other ways by providing resources.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Chris, will you speak a little bit to your experience as an athlete and how trans athlete and Go athletes are key resources for LGBT students looking for college and who are already on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So Go Athletes is the largest national network of current and former LGBTQ high school and collegiate athletes. And so our mission is to provide visibility, education, advocacy, and basically support for our LGBTQ athletes, whether they're out or not. And so we know that it's not safe for everybody to be out. And something that folks need to consider as they enter their college experience. We had a great joint chat between Go Athletes and Campus Pride last night on Twitter using the hashtag LGBTQCollege411. Folks can search back through that and see some of the great answers from last night's chat about being an athlete and searching for college. We had some athletes who were not out as they entered college, and they talked a little bit about what that decision-making process was like, thinking that some of them were looking for a place to hide as they entered their college experience, and others were just looking for a place that they could be truly themselves. And so we find a wide variety. Go Athletes is here to support folks in wherever they are, and connect them to other athletes. I think that a lot of us feel like we're the only ones. And for athletes in particular, there's a lot of stereotypes around being an athlete and being LGBTQ. Those identities and the intersection of that identity isn't always recognized in the athletic sphere. So we're really trying to support those athletes. I'm also the founder of transathlete.com, and transathlete.com is a resource for athletes, students, parents, administrators, coaches to go and find information about trans-inclusive policies at various levels of play. And what we find is that for trans athletes, that depending on what state they're in right now as high schoolers, they may have a very different experience when they enter college based on the policies that are in place there. So in most cases, that's going to be a better experience because of the variety of policies at the high school level. And recreation sports and the NCAA have policies and guidelines in place that should be supportive of our trans and gender nonconforming athletes. So one thing that I just want to plug real quick is that we have the Go Athletes Mentorship Program, where we are connecting LGBTQ athletes to other athletes to kind of eliminate that that feeling like they are the only one, and help them navigate the experiences, which can be from figuring out how to come out on a team or how to exist as an LGBT athlete on a college campus, to even something like this of like, how do I navigate the scholarship experience, or what should I be looking for on campuses now when I'm searching, to find out if they're inclusive or to find out what the culture of an athletic department is. So that's some of the work that we're doing in both of those areas.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you to Go Athletes as well for your incredible partnership and everything that you all have done with and for Campus Pride. Definitely, if any of you watching have never been to the Campus Pride Index, we would encourage you to open a new tab and take a look while you're listening to the rest of the Hangout. That's campusprideindex.org. And really what you can do is identify what all of our panelists have already mentioned to what was important to them on campus. You can identify on campuses right now on the index. You can search by region and by state and really take a look at how a school marks up when it comes to LGBTQ inclusion, when it comes to programs, policies, and practices. So take a look at that, and also keep chatting along with our college reps at the college fair, and that's at campuspride.org/college fair. We talked a little bit about policy, and when it comes to the top 10 things to consider when looking for an LGBTQ-friendly college, we've addressed some of them already. We've talked about being involved in LGBTQ student organizations. We've talked about what it looks like for having out LGBT students and staff on campus. And we've talked about inclusive policies as well. Shane, I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the point of retention and recruitment and why it's important for colleges to actively seek LGBT students, as well as what it looks like for optional enrollment questions to help us track and keep the retention of our queer students on campus.
Sure, thank you, Rebby. Just to add a little bit to what Rebby mentioned about the Campus Pride Index, we actually just started a new index called the Campus Pride Sports Index, which actually echoes what Chris was mentioning. And so, you know, it's slowly being built, meaning that we have about 24 colleges that are on the Sports Index, but both the Campus Pride Index, if you're looking just at the general campus landscape, and then if you're an athlete looking at sports, recreation, or athletics, check out the campuspridesportsindex.org. So there's tons of resources for you, which, you know, just 8 years ago there were no resources. So, you know, we're really changing the culture of campuses by focusing on the positive work that's happening at college campuses. Rebby brings up, you know, the question around, you know, looking at what you look for in a friendly campus, and kind of the top 10 things to look for. You know, Harvey Milk infamously said, you know, we're here to recruit you. And it says a lot when young people are being recruited by colleges for being LGBTQ, for being transgender, for being non-binary, bisexual, lesbian, gay, asexual, intersex. You know, college campuses today, there's roughly, I would say, about 400 that regularly participate in our college fair program, because in addition to this online fair, Campus Pride hosts 9 college fairs in person across the country. They tend to be in large urban cities, so that's why we host the online fair, is to really reach out into rural communities and, you know, broaden the accessibility. But colleges want to recruit, just like Harvey Milk said, right? And so if you're a young person today or an older adult learner and are looking at colleges, look for the colleges that want to invest in being present at college fairs that are LGBTQ, like our Campus Pride fairs, who are online with us, right? Because it says one thing to, you know, have a drag show or to have a student group, but if they're actually going to put their, you know, their money right where their mouth is and actually show up to recruit you as an LGBTQ student, that really says more than I think any policy can. And so it's about that practice. And so recruitment and retention is really important. Also, you know, how are colleges retaining students who are LGBTQ? It costs more money to recruit a new student than it does to retain a current one. And so once you're enrolled on that campus, you know, the idea is that you stay there for, you know, 4 years, or if it's a 2-year college, you stay there for 2 years. But the college has to retain you, so that means that they have to have programs and services that support you. Chris mentioned their mentorship program with Go Athlete. I think one of the amazing programs that more and more colleges are doing that are LGBTQ friendly is a mentorship program to help new students kind of be mentored by someone who's LGBTQ who can help them that first or second year. Because what we find is that LGBTQ young people have a rough time transitioning into a new college space. We also find that intersections of identity are so important. So a young person who happens to be a young person of color who's LGBTQ has a different experience. You know, we're not all just queer. We're also people of faith. We have we have a racial, a cultural identity. So, we're impacted in different ways. So, it's not just about looking at how progressive or how inclusive the campus is when it comes to LGBTQ issues, right? It's about the full package and about all of who you are. But, colleges have come a long way, but we're still only talking about maybe 18 to 20% of colleges that are, even have a non-discrimination statement inclusive of sexual orientation. Only about 13% roughly have gender identity included in their non-discrimination statement. So you do want to keep a watchful eye when you're on your college, your college visit to see what you see on campus. How many out students are there? Do they have an office or a support center? All those visible signs, a safe space or an ally zone, things like that.
Thank you, Shane. So we have some really great information, right? Please take a second, open up some new tabs. Everybody's really put some great information here. And I'd like to look a little bit more, too, about what other resources are available on campus. Prin, you had mentioned mental health, and so I wonder if you or any of the other panelists would be willing to talk a little bit about the importance of accessing mental health support, especially as a queer person when professionals on campus need to be able to understand our issues. It's not our responsibility to educate the faculty or professionals on campus, and so will you talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you, and if anybody else would like to jump in? Looks like you're still on mute.
Sorry, the mouse wouldn't move. I have not yet accessed mental health resources on my campus, so I'm going to pass this question on to someone else. Thank you.
I think that's a huge key, right? Because we should be able to have these resources on campus. Does anybody have any experience accessing any mental health providers on campus? Chris, I see you nodding.
Yeah, so I think this is particularly my grad school experience, which I think for me is kind of a little bit closer to what we're talking about, because I entered grad school and transitioned to identify as a trans guy, and was in the beginning of my transition at the entry of grad school, and so I was kind of in this weird space of not being out at work and in other parts of my life, but entering school and trying to change documents and things like that. And so I found the mental health facilities to be really, really helpful, and many schools will offer a set number of sessions for free if they're able to do that. And then there are a lot of institutions that have partnerships with either on-campus medical facilities or with a local hospital, and so that's something to look at too. For me, it was really important because the school that I was at, which I can just give a shout out to NYU, which I know is on the Campus Pride Index rated, and I actually saw it on the homepage the other day. They had a great partnership with their medical facilities in that I was able to access hormones and have doctors who were very well trained in working with LGBT folks, and so I felt very comfortable there. Whereas even in New York City, I wasn't feeling very comfortable going to places off campus, and so that was key for me. And then as a college administrator, I frequently refer people to our Counseling and Wellness Center because I feel like it's such a great resource for folks to just have that sort of person that they can go to and take advantage of those services when they feel like that's something that they want to access.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else want to jump in and add anything to that?
I can add kind of my experience at my school. So I have not personally accessed mental health services. However, our student organization does a bi-weekly talk series with the counseling center at my school, which is not quite group therapy because it's not like licensed a specific way, but it's a chat basically where it's called Lavender Chats, and we sit there and it's facilitated by us, the students, and trained counselors from the counseling center, and we talk about all types of topics about identity and experience and coming out and that kind of thing. So that's been really helpful for a lot of folks to sort of do that in a group setting, to be able to talk about those topics. And I know that we do have multiple queer counselors or LGBTQ identified counselors in our Center for Counseling and Student Development. So we do have those resources on campus, and I know they have been helpful for people. And we also have a certain number of sessions, and I'm not sure if it's like and then it stops being free, or if I think they refer you to a different place. But I don't personally know that, but I know that we do have pretty strong resources through the counseling department at my school.
Awesome.
Jay, that's awesome. If I could just jump in real quick, you mentioned something about having out counselors, and I just wanted to say that I think that's so important that if you are on campus and you're looking around, say you're on a campus tour or something like that, you know, it can tell a lot about an institution to see if there are out folks on campus or people who are visibly displaying some sort of LGBT, you know, whether it's a safe zone or an ally sticker or something that indicates that they are safer spaces or trained in LGBT topics. And I think that that can really speak volumes. If we tell our athletes who are looking at colleges to get a good glimpse of their athletic department and see if some of those things are there, but just seeing and having those folks on campus or having a web page on their website that says that certain folks in departments are trained in LGBT topics can really be a game changer because it really does speak volumes about what the campus environment is like.
Absolutely. Thanks for both of that. With what our panelists have shared, for you as a student, it's really important for you to think about these sorts of questions when you have an opportunity to go on a college visit. And let's say you're not ready to go on college visits. Our free online college fair is a perfect place for you to ask some of these kinds of questions to the admissions reps. A lot of them are connected to or also have LGBTQ folks who are representing the centers on campus as well that can help answer these questions. So always remember that. It's always about the right sorts of questions to ask and digging deeper on campus when it comes to looking for the resources that you need as a queer student. We'd like to talk a little bit more as well today. To remind everybody, we do have a space for Q&A. If you just click on your screen, there's a space there where you can type in questions and they appear for us. Additionally, you can go online to Twitter and use the hashtag LGBTQCollege411, and we're tracking that as well. Looks like everyone's having a great time chatting over at the college fair as well, so thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to speak a little bit about what it's like balancing your work life, your school life, your love life, while keeping academics at the forefront of your college career. Will you speak to what that balance looked like for you? Prin, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm still working on that balance, so I might have to pass this question on to someone else, and maybe I can get some advice from them as well.
Thank you so much. Jay, how about you?
Sure. So I also am still working on this, but I think what is helpful for me is in our organization we always say that school comes first. You're a student first. You know, you're paying a lot of money to be there, so you better be getting your education, right? So that's what we try to emphasize, is that you're there to be a student first, and any activism you can do in addition to that is super important and very helpful. But definitely your academics and your schoolwork does come first, because that is the primary reason why you're there. So for me, always remembering that has been helpful. And it does get a little stressful. I'm also involved in some racial justice activism on campus, and things can get a little tense there sometimes. So the thing that helps me is always remembering self-care, which is important. And so sort of just taking some time to sort of like sit in my room and just do something that I like, or play a video game, or talk to somebody who gets it, and we can just sort of chat and vent a little. And that also is an important thing to jump off on, is like having a network of people that I can communicate with all the time, and who we can sort of balance each other out. Like, oh, hey, did you finish this thing? Or like, you're not looking so, like, have you eaten? Like, let's go on Main Street and get something to eat. So that's been important for me, is taking care of myself and having a group of other people who also can help me out with that. And then definitely remembering to be a student.
Awesome. Thank you. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I think the recommendation that I give to students who are arriving on campus is to get connected as soon as possible. For folks who are leaving home, or even who are staying at home, I guess, to try to not try to stay on campus for the first month to 2 months. And so my recommendation is always up until even Thanksgiving for that fall semester entry to try to get connected and really feel like you're a part of campus. And I think that's the big thing, because a lot of those connections happen on the weekends or outside of the classroom. Making those connections makes it easier to be a student and to stay connected inside with the academics. Also, I think one key for me was just to work my butt off over the summer to try to save some money going in, because I knew that I'd have to work in the academic year. And I certainly, and I see this with all of my students, that there's always times where we are stressed and that we forget the self-care that Jay mentioned, which is so important. And we also forget that sort of balance between, sometimes student activities took over because I was really involved in a club or organization. Sometimes work took over because I needed to eat. And then it always came back to academics as the sole reason that I was really there. And so it's important to keep that in perspective as you go through. But really, really, really get involved or get connected on campus as soon as you can to make that sort of academic experience what you want it to be.
Thanks, everyone, for sharing that. And Prin, it sounds like you're practicing good self-care right now, so absolutely keep taking care of yourself. And Shane, you've been in the higher ed sector for quite a while, from starting and looking for college, going to college grad school, everything that you've done. Will you talk a little bit about what juggling looks like for you and how you know what to put first, and balancing that work life and activism and what you do for self-care?
So I think that's a real interesting question, because I think it's important that we all reflect on how we take care of ourselves mentally and emotionally and physically. I definitely think it's an evolving process, right? So what Prin had said, I think they're very accurate in that sometimes you do well at it and sometimes you really suck, right? In college, it's very different because your academics should be first, right? Like, that you're there to get an education, you're there to hopefully fulfill some sort of life goal or find out what your life goal is. And then after college, you have the opportunity to kind of balance your life with things you love, with work, and with continue to pursue whatever your passions are. And sometimes that passion is your work. And I think that's where it's challenging for me, because my work is my passion, and so even as an activist, as a student, I would find myself oftentimes so passionate that I would forget to take care of myself emotionally and physically. The grades and academics came pretty easy for me, but at the same time, it's so important to have that balance. And we talk about self-care a lot, as part of our leadership camp. And I try to take time to do things I find to be fun, and that's my self-care. My dogs are my self-care, right? But at the end of the day, study hard. Focus on your academics. If you're in a safe space, if you pick the right LGBTQ-friendly college, you don't have to worry about the pressures per se that you might find on a campus that has no support for LGBTQ students. There are students who attend campuses these days because of maybe their religion or faith, or maybe because that's where their family went. And some of those campuses have policies in place that are against LGBTQ young people, or they just don't support LGBTQ young people coming out. So you have to be careful, and you have to make sure you pick the right campus so you can practice self-care and really focus on what's important in your life, which is just living and being who you are.
Thank you. So there are a few other top 10 things to think about when it comes to finding an LGBTQ-friendly campus. A few of you referenced what visible signs of pride look like, whether that's a safe space sticker on the door of a faculty member, or knowing that there are out professionals, whether in the resource center, and when it comes to athletics, when it comes to all the other types of activities on campus. And then we also want to look at if a campus is LGBTQ friendly from the top down, right? So if the president of the university is willing to come out and stand behind their queer students on campus, that really trickles down and creates a more positive climate for all queer students on campus. Another item to think about and to ask about when you're on the online college fair or when you're out at college visits is seeing if there's LGBTQ inclusive housing, as well as looking at gender inclusive restrooms on campus. A really good resource here is looking at the Trans Policy Clearinghouse. That's campuspride.org/TPC. Take a look there, and it'll really give you some specific campuses that are practicing this really well and have implemented these queer inclusive living environments and accessibilities on campus. In addition, looking at if a campus that you're interested in has an established LGBTQ center as well as support services. Like Shane said earlier, if a college is willing to put the money into this work, then they're willing to have a paid staff person who's doing this work, which helps alleviate a lot of the pressures that student activists feel on campus, feeling that they're the only ones doing this work, and when they leave, nobody else is doing it. And so think about that as well. In addition, as you're looking for campuses, seeing if there's a queer studies major or minor. Sounds like Prin is a women's and gender and sexuality study there at USF. If that is accessible, you know, in addition to the other classrooms, if teachers are willing to use examples that are more than just heterosexual married couple examples, and when we look at the way that we present sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom is key, right? That is key to inclusion in the learning environment as well. We also want to keep in mind having a progressive culture, vibrant LGBTQ scene around our college community. Chris, going to NYU and living in New York must have made this so easy being in New York, but some of us maybe living in rural Florida, rural Kentucky, it can be a little challenging. So remember that you get to decide who your family is and find the support centers and the resources around your life while you're in college that will really increase your student success in your academics and all of your endeavors as a student. We've talked about a lot today. This recording will be on YouTube, so feel free to go to Campus Pride's YouTube channel, check it out, share it, and go back to the online college fair and ask some more questions to the representatives there. To close out, I'd like to go through each of the panelists and see if you have any of your favorite resources or any tips or advice that you'd like to leave our student viewers with before we close out. Chris, we'll start with you.
Great. So I just want to plug the Campus Pride Index. I think that that is one of my favorite resources, and really as a college administrator, it was a big moment to get my school to join on to that. I think it shows a deep commitment to inclusion, and even if a school isn't perfect, it shows that they're really thinking about it and prioritizing it. So really appreciative of that resource. And I think as an athlete, for trans and gender nonconforming folks, transathlete.com, and then also goathletes.org. And I think those are great resources for connecting LGBTQ folks who are interested in athletics. You don't have to be a D1 player to participate in this. It's anybody who's interested in, feels that being an athlete is part of their identity, that there's a support network out there for you. I would just close by saying we really want people to feel comfortable where they're at. So while financial decisions and in-state tuition, which I also looked for, all of those are very important. It's 4 years, 5 years for me of your life that you're looking at potentially 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So you want to find a place that you feel like you can succeed and be supported.
Thank you, Chris. Jay, we'll jump to you.
Sure. So I also want to plug the Campus Pride Index. And it was a really helpful tool to use to just sort of compare and contrast a lot of things and look for specific points that I was looking for in schools. And then I think a good strategy that I would recommend, campuses becoming LGBTQ inclusive is just sort of happening recently, and so a lot of them don't really know how to display that information properly, including, unfortunately, sometimes my school. And so I think what I would recommend is talk to somebody. If they have a number that you can call, if you don't know what the situation with gender-neutral housing is, look at the Residence Life page and call somebody and ask the question and talk about it. If you don't know about like changing your name in the system that they use at the school, call the registrar, like that kind of stuff. Call financial aid if you don't think that they give you enough to be able to support your education. Like, just talk to somebody. That's helped so much, and it's something that I didn't do that I think I would have wished that I had done when I was searching for schools. And so definitely don't be afraid. I mean, people, they get paid to answer the phones all day. Like, you might as well call them. So I think going out of your way to really get the answers to the questions you have is so, so important, because, I mean, especially if you're spending a lot of money, it's important. A lot of people want to just kind of do it once in one go. So if you can make it the best go that it can be, definitely get all your questions answered ahead of time.
Thank you, Jay. And Prin, how about you?
Yeah, so Campus Pride, you and Rebby and Shane have been like really helpful to me on a personal and a professional level, and I really appreciate that. Camp Pride was a really amazing experience, and I recommend it to everyone. It really helped me with my leadership skills and recognizing the importance of self-care, something that I'm still working on and learning how to do. And I guess something that I want to say is, if you're a student, you can make change on your campus. You really can do that. You just have to get people together, connect to organizations like Campus Pride, and build your leadership skills, and you can make that happen.
Thank you. And Shane, how about you?
Well, I think there's tons of resources that have been mentioned. I think that we have a trans policy clearinghouse, so if you're trans or non-binary, it's at campuspride.org/T as in trans, P as in policy, C as in clearinghouse, so TPC. So check that out. I think that's a great resource. I think when we're talking about the transition from high school to college, right, our College Fair program in the fall is wonderful. Obviously, our online fair happens every spring, and so this is something that you can look forward to once a year. So we encourage you to check that out. At the end of the day, it's about you, right? It's about your family. It's about what experience you want to have in college. And we really encourage you, if you're going to be paying for college, even if you get scholarships, pick a college that is going to be responsible, and accountable to who you are. Everyone today, we can create scholarships. There's financial aid to help with accessibility, but sometimes it's not always easy to know which colleges to go to and which colleges will support you academically as well as support you for who you are. So I think that's so important, and I'm just so glad to have a great panelist today, some wonderful people. Jay, I love your shirt. It's wonderful, and the fact that we're talking about colleges recruiting LGBTQ students is huge, right? And I don't mean that in the huge sense, right? I just mean it in the huge sense that it's a big deal. And so thank you to the colleges who are participating in the College Fair today, all of our partners. This online College Fair is just going to get bigger and bigger because young people want to go to places that are LGBTQ friendly.
Thank you so much. If we didn't happen to see your question online, or if you didn't have a chance to ask a question here on the Google platform, feel free to catch us in the online College Fair. The help desk will be available and open until 9 p.m. tonight, and that's at campuspride.org/collegefair. It's completely free, so please join us. Students and families are definitely welcome. We'll look forward to catching up with you very soon. Please stay up to date with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat, and Instagram. Thanks so much for joining us, and happy St. Patrick's Day, LGBTQ College 411.